Rolling inwards.
And lying flat.
We're your hosts, Psycho Meatfish.
And Mechode.
Alright, introduction part now.
Oui.
Yeah, you wanna go first?
Oui. I am Mechode, artist for the Mismamon webcomic, writer, artist extraordinaire. I just make art, write, normal sort of stuff, artist anyway. C'est about all.
Alright, and I am your host, Psycho Meatfish. I'm an artist from New Jersey, and a lot of my art covers dark subjects in silly and or morbid ways. So if you like that, you can find me on Newgrounds or in Mastodon.
That's right.
I'm also part of the Zach Feldman Community Discord, so if you're looking for a supportive community of artists, come say hi to us. Without further ado, though, let's talk about the topic for this one.
Mismamon?
Mismamon, yes. So, Mechode, what is Mismamon?
Well, Mismamon is a webcomic I made following an angel, Annie, falling from heaven and discovering herself and what it means to be, well, herself. Following her friends, and covering dark topics like child trauma and manipulation, things like that. Very fun to do it. Very, very, very weird and self-indulgent, I have to say so myself.
Yeah. Alright, so that's the topic, Mismamon. Okay. How do we start this?
Well, from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yes?
So, Mismamon started about 2 years ago as a sort of series of things that I did on my own for fun, and also because I had nothing else to do with my life at that point in my life. It was just a series of very weird. Okay, this was like the first one.
Very weird. Very, very weird.
This is the first one, I think, that I did for it. I feel like at this point, I was just kind of shitting around with art. I didn't really know what I was doing. Like this is not related. This isn't related to the fucking comic. Or this isn't related to like the other drawings in any way. This is random. So at this point, I was kind of just doing a bunch of random things, and this was one of them. Originally, Mismamon went by a different name, Our Truth, and it was, a trading card game instead of what it is going to be now as a comic. Not made by me. And there wasn't a lot of planning went into this. It was just kind of random, sort of. At this point, I didn't really have a lot of structure or anything. But it was just about these kids and their abusive parents. And it was sort of put into this like fantasy sort of metaphorical lens where, there were like differences and everything was just a lot more whimsical, I think, from this perspective. It was a lot less realistic, probably, when it came to these ideas. And that's just how I was, I think, generally, as an artist and as a person, I think.
That's why it's so fun, huh?
Yeah. Okay. Okay, we can just talk about this one right now. This fucking mess. Right. So, you know who this is, right? Okay.
My first time seeing that.
You just saw this one?
Flash. I saw the others, but not Flash.
It's really bad. You should know what this is, probably.
Yeah, I know.
It's really fucking stupid, so... Wagerman, classic stuff. Right. I think I told you about A+ already.
Beta Egghead.
Yeah, A+ was Egghead, basically. You don't know who Egghead is.
You do not know yet.
You don't know yet, but This guy was Egghead, the first Egghead. Yeah, and these were some fucking weird. These were basically the little quote unquote mock-ups, I guess, for their symbols, sort of.
I see.
Yeah, basically what they were.
What is happening in that first one?
Which one? This one?
The puzzle piece or something?
It's a puzzle piece. Yeah, it's basically just a puzzle piece. Yeah, basically what it is. These are the ones there, and there were monsters and stuff. Yeah, that's not it anymore. Doesn't add anything to it.
Yeah, not really relevant.
Yeah, not relevant, but it was a thing back in the day. We can talk about
This is masqueraders?
Yeah, these are the masquerade. Right. So the game, in the game, you could pick one of two teams. There were the misfits, which were the children that were, changed by their parents forever. And then there were the masqueraders, which were the parents, which, they're bad in this case.
But
so these are the ones I had at the time, at least that I recovered. You could probably guess who some of these people are.
okay.
Can. And man, I shall not name, until we get there. But okay, so a lot of these the concepts that I used for the misfits and the masqueraders, I took from ideas like physically or verbally abusive parents, or your generic evil businessman.
Oui.
And his son. That's another one. Or black sheep child in the family. And other things like that. But this first section of Mismamon, or I guess Our Truth at this point, there wasn't much to really say about it. It's I didn't know what I was doing, so.
But I guess the interesting thing is, why did you start doing it in the first place?
There isn't even a concrete answer to that. Like, why I started doing this. It's just kind of a random thing. I'm at 2 years ago, I was just a completely different person. I was a lot more sporadic with things, and I mean, I still am up to a point, but there was just such a little planning put into this stuff. I'd come up with new ideas for things, on a whim, and just do them, and sometimes just leave them there, for months, just making things. There was no regard for structure or whether or not it made any sense to me. I just wanted to make things. There was no logic to it, ultimately.
But why so dark, huh? Why so dark?
That I will talk about some other day.
Ah.
Okay, yeah. So 1 year later, we well, I guess a year later from this, a lot of things changed, I'd say. Me as an artist, me as a person, I grew a lot in a year, and my art style changed a lot too, and I just started taking art a lot more seriously, albeit with little quirks here and there. At some point, I brought Mismamon back, and at this point, it was actually called Mismamon's.
Oui, il est bien merde. Il est bien merde.
And it was a board game. It was a board game with
Hypothetical board game.
Yeah, a theoretical board game. It's not real. Disclaimer: none of this is real. No, I don't have the funds for that. I'm not Spin Master, so I can't do any of this shit. It was a theoretical board game with tiles, and the way you play it was that you had your misfits and your masqueraders, your two teams. You chose a team against the other player. You played against them. Each team had its own objective. So the misfits, their objective was to go onto monster tiles and remove them. Yeah, and escape. Remove the monster tiles and escape before the masqueraders could capture them. And there was like a combat system. There were stats. There was health, movement, range. Every character had a unique ability, and that affected certain parts of play. And there were cards that you would draw every other turn. I was too lazy to get into this really, but there were cards that affected the game and would benefit you and your team, or be the detriment of the other person's team. So it was a lot more complicated, but I could talk about for a very long time how flawed it is as someone.
At the time, one of the classes were overpowered.
I think.
Was it Masqueraders?
I think it was
Misfit?
I think it was Masqueraders. I think Masqueraders was a lot better than Misfits to play. I think the objectives weren't properly balanced, and Masqueraders just had a lot of an easier time winning than Misfits.
So sad.
Yeah. And there were just a lot of other problems, a lot of characters were just not good.
Shit.
Yeah.
Meld.
Not good. But we'll kind of talk about that image by image here. So back to this thing here. So from last year, some characters actually came back. So for those of you who actually read the Mismamon comic, you should know who this person is. That's this is Can, the demon guy. If you still don't know who I'm talking about, the black demon guy. Really big eyes, creepy smile, broken bones. I definitely drew this this posture very properly. That guy, and that's Can. He was one of the first masqueraders I ever made, even since Our Truth, and he stayed for a very long time up to the Mismamon comic. And there's these other characters, some of which you might see, some of which you may not see in the actual comic, but all of these guys were there, and they had a place. We can talk about them, I think, individually, since I feel they're all interesting to talk about. So we'll talk about the first guy here. I think Shorta. We'll talk about Shorta. So Shorta, I don't think Shorta is Shorta in the comic now, or
well, it's not final. I originally planned for Shorta to appear.
Okay, Shorta.
Over time when I was writing, I did not see an opportunity for her to appear, so maybe minor role, but as of the moment, no clue.
Okay, so we don't.
Like Shorta though.
Yeah, we don't know if Shorta is actually going to be in it, but Shorta is one of my favorite misfits. Well, / masquerader. She has an interesting mechanic. She can be one or the other teams depending on which one you pick, and each variation of her has a different effect depending on which team she's on.
This is also where I was trying to reflect this in the comic with her character, being, no spoilers just in case, but you'll see if she actually comes up.
Yeah, but Shorta, if we're talking about thematically what Shorta was about, well, her name, design-wise, she's based off of Schrodinger's cat, dead or alive, and she is basically the equivalent of the office worker who is unhappy with their lives, who is living in this job, and they never really took the time to think about who they were or where they wanted to be in life, and now they're just in this position and they can't get out, or they feel as though they can't get out. And there's that metaphorical concept of, are you dead or are you alive? Are you alive? Are you living your best life? Are you, living the way you want, or are you dead? Are you a husk of who you were, your former self? Are you stuck in the rat race? Are you just going through the motions, or are you alive? So are you dead or are you alive? And that is what Schroeder was about, and that is why she had the unique mechanic of being both teams, because she was a part of both of them. Someone who lives in the world of the adults, who has a job, who is an office worker, and someone who secretly doesn't like that life, someone who longs to be a child again, to live their life freely and to discover themselves again. And that's what she was about. And she was a very interesting character to come up with and to work with here.
So much your child at heart, huh? Child at heart.
Yeah, child at heart, practically.
So which version was better?
Right. So
I don't remember one thing being a lot worse than the other.
Yeah. Okay, I have to read this again. I mean, the game in of itself was pretty unbalanced, but from what I remember, I'm actually not sure anymore. I don't know. I don't know which one is better. I don't.
Maybe the Masquerade one?
I think Masquerade Schroeder is probably better.
You're kind of wasting a slot on the Misfit one, can't
Yeah, I think Masquerade Schroeder is probably better than Misfit Schroeder. Probably. Again, Mismamon at this point was still very, very premature and balanced, so I don't think this is relevant, but I think Masquerade Schroeder was better. Probably.
Yeah, it's just interesting to talk about, no?
Yeah, it's just interesting, but I think I can't really say it. I'm not sure,
Well, Misfit Schroeder cannot escape.
Yeah, she can't escape, which is a very bad mechanic.
Not contributing to the win condition.
No, not contributing to the win condition. So you can basically only use her as a diversion, basically, for the other person, since she can't actually give you points by escaping.
At least Masquerade Schroeder can do damage, but she cannot capture.
She can still do damage. She just can't capture. So she could technically withdraw.
Theoretically, still
withdraw Misfits in a fight, but she can't capture them, which isn't that bad. And she's immune to monster tile, so she can get put out of the game temporarily if you step on one, and you still get a play from doing that. Since if Masquerader step on a monster tile, they get put out of the game for a turn, and then they have to start over from the start of the board. But you get a card to play that compensates for that. So since she's immune to that, she can step on the tiles and not get put back, but still get a card, which is beneficial for the Masquerader player.
Then what do you mean you don't know? This is almost better than the Misfit one.
I suppose, but the way that movement works, you roll a die, right? I did not explain this, but you do roll a die, and there's a multiplier that, okay, her movement is 2 though, so it should be fairly easy to control how far she moves, but if you don't step on the monster tile, you don't get the effect, so it is still partially affected by luck, whether or not you actually get the free card.
Really partially, just the second lowest movement stat in the entire game.
Yeah, partially, so
it's quite good.
It's still good, and just the fact that you could attack Misfits and not have to worry about characters like Six or monster tiles in of itself is still useful, and because Masqueraders getting withdrawn isn't that big of a deal if you can still manage your team properly. But this is all theoretical.
Maybe we should explain the rules a bit more.
The rules, yeah.
Kind of blabbering.
So we already talked about Mismamon, what the objectives are. Every character has 3 stats. So we'll go back to Schroeder. Every character has a movement stat, which is the little footstep there. This just determines how far they can move, and to
Depends
move,
on dice roll.
it depends on the dice roll. So the dice rolls in this game are not your generic 6-sided dice. They're actually multipliers. I can't remember how far they went, but I think it was
1.5, 2.
I think it went from half multiplier into 1, into 2, and into 3. So I think it depended on your movement stat to balance it out. So if you were a 3 mover, there wasn't a 3 die. Your die range was up to only I think half and 2, I think, or half and 1.5 or something like that, just to make sure that you don't get like very crazy movement RNG. But it was based on a multiplier, so I think the slower you were, the larger of a movement range you had. So I think one movement characters had a 1 to 4, I think. 1 to 4, I think.
C'était
Yeah. And I think 2s had 1 to 2, or maybe 1 to 3.
I think it was 1 to 3.
I think it was 1 to 3, and 3 movers had 1 to 1.5, 1 to 1.5, just to make sure that let me give an example. So if Shorta is a 2 mover, so if Shorta rolled a die and she got 1.5, so obviously that's 1.5. So we're adding half of 2, which is 1. So she would move 3 tiles. If we got 0.5, we would be subtracting half, which is 1 again. So she'd be moving 1 tile. And if we got 3, if we got 2, she'd be moving twice her movement. So she'd be moving 4 tiles. So that is just kind of an example as to how it works. And that is how they moved. And the second stat is stamina. And stamina is basically their health. So I did not explain combat, but I'll get into that now. So combat in this game, or better called struggle,
is entirely bullshit.
Yeah, it's rock, paper, scissors.
Rock, paper, scissors.
So that's so this is like peak game design. Combat is rock, paper, scissors. So it's very peak. So it's basically your health. You can think of the stamina number as being your amount of lives or stocks, if we're going to fighting game terms for the fights. So 3 lives, you got 3 chances to win with the rock, paper, scissors game. Get the other person's stamina to 0 and you win. If Misfits run out of stamina while fighting a Masquerader, they get captured. If Masqueraders run out of stamina while fighting a Misfit, they get withdrawn. And if both fighters run out of stamina, they both get withdrawn. And that's how it worked.
So theoretically, if you are really good at rock, paper, scissors, you could win with the shittiest character.
Yeah, you could win, but
it's mostly luck.
Yeah, it's mostly luck. So, and the last stat, which is the very poorly drawn arrow, is range, and range determines at what distance can the character initiate struggle with another character. So Shorta has a 3 tile distance range,
which is pretty good.
Yeah, which means that if she finds a character that is 3 tiles away from her, she can initiate struggle with them, and vice versa with the other character. So those are the 3 stats and how they're affected. If for a better understanding of how the game worked, I think.
Talk about the board? The board?
The board?
The board.
The board. The board. Oh, the board. The board, simple enough. There are monster tiles. When Masqueraders go on monster tiles, they get withdrawn, but you also get a player. When Misfits go on monster tiles, they can't do anything for a turn because they're spending that time removing the monster tiles. And I think this is one of the reasons why Masqueraders were better, because there was a very large punishment on Misfits for going on the tiles because they couldn't do anything. So it was very difficult for them to escape, and it gave the Masqueraders an extra turn to inch up on them and possibly capture them, which is why I don't think the game was properly balanced. And then there's the escape door, which only opens up after a certain number of monsters are defeated. So
it's bullshit.
Yeah,
huh?
It's not real balanced.
The Misfits are just getting rid of the monsters for the Masqueraders.
Yeah.
And they get stoned for a turn.
Yeah.
Not fair at all.
And usually you'd have to defeat 3 monsters before the escape door opened, and then at that point you'd have to leave. And to determine the winner, at the end of the fight, whether all Misfits escape or all Misfits get captured, or after a certain number of turns, whoever has so it's a point system. For every Misfit that escapes, the team Misfits gets 1 point, and for every Masquerader that captures a Misfit, Masqueraders get 1 point. So we're basically checking to see how many Misfits have escaped versus how many Misfits have been caught. And if more Misfits have escaped than Misfits have been caught, then you win. Misfits win. But if more Misfits have been captured than Misfits have escaped, then Masqueraders win. And that is basically how the game worked.
The board was kind of iffy at the time.
It's not good.
Very not well fun.
It's very it's cluttered. There's not a lot of opportunities to move or try different strategies.
Very cluttered.
And that's because I went with square tiles instead of hexagonal tiles, which hexagonal tiles are much, much better for this sort of system. They allow for a lot more varied movement. There's a lot more neighboring tiles. There's just much, much more flexibility with more complicated game mechanics.
This design is just weird.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work very well. There's so much like complexity to the system that a simple square board just wouldn't work. So I think in post, if I was coming back to this, I would add hexagonal tiles instead because it allows for a lot more complex gameplay and also more freedom and versatility. But that is just the game mechanics being explained there.
Which I think would be important as we get into more characters,
Yeah, as we get into more characters. All right, so back to the characters. We just talked about Shorta and about the game mechanics a little bit. So let's talk about Miss Widow, and I guess in just to be fair, Samuel as well. And we're there about a little bit. So Miss Widow is one of the second masquerader in line here in this this lineup, as we've only had about I think five masqueraders. Yeah. The other two there were never finished really. The weird looking clown guy, I did not do his stats or his name, so he's basically non-existent. And the other person, which was supposed to be a barber or something, I never finished. So that was it. Just those five people. From Shorta to the very weird looking individual at the bottom with 3 arms. So that was about the length of what I did, masqueraders wise. There were many more misfits, but not a lot of masqueraders. So the next one was Miss Widow, and she, I don't have too much to say about her. Thematically, just a generic concept of the parent-child relationship where the parent wants the child to go through a sort of a career path that the child does not want to do, and the parent just doesn't understand the child. So the child feels forced to pursue this career opportunity for the love and approval of their parent. So Miss Widow's a businessman, I guess businesswoman in this terminology. She's a spider, if your eyes aren't working too well here. No offense. And her misfit counterpart is Samuel. Samuel is this caterpillar guy. I don't know how they're related, but they are.
Bug. No, not technically no bug.
Yeah. Samuel never, I never did his stats, but he was there. So they had that sort of relationship, and that was basically what it represented, I think, to that point.
Kind of reminds me of Shorta.
Yeah, Shorta a little bit, but in a sort of different dynamic. And canonically, Miss Widow and Shorta did work in the same company.
They did?
Yeah. I guess we could look at her stats now. So
she was pretty bad.
Yeah, she was
buffed like twice.
She was bad. Probably one of the worst units I made, which is surprising coming from masqueraders. But
is this the buff version?
Yeah, the numbers there in the brackets are the added numbers. Well, the updated numbers really. We're not adding 2 + 3. That'd be crazy.
The original ones were terrible.
Yeah, the stats were really bad, but
Très mad.
Yeah. 3 was much worse. Sorry, 6 was much. 6, the Misfit 6 is probably the worst character in the entire game, in hindsight, but we'll get to 6 later. So 2 movement, standard, pretty much. We're going to talk about the original stats. 2 stamina, which is, unequivocally dog shit. I don't need to get into that. It's terrible. It's awful. Especially with characters like Fuse running around. It's very easy to...
Dogmatic?
Yeah, I mean, Dogmatic...
For example, same thing, but
Yeah. Characters like Fuse and Dogmatic running around, if she got into a fight with them, she would just lose no matter what, pretty much. No matter how...
Very good at rock, paper,
no matter how good you are at rock, paper, scissors, you're probably going to lose. And I think her original range was 2, and... Yeah, it was 2. I never wrote it down, but it was 2, and that is technically below average, actually. That's not... Range isn't as important as movement and stamina, but, overall her stats were very bad. it was 2s in all 3 of them, and that is terrible.
Well, it was a lot more important for masqueraders.
Yeah, stats are a lot more important for masqueraders than misfits because they have to fight the misfits. So if they can't fight them, they're bad because they can't capture them that way. Unless they're Can. Can is a completely different beast, mechanic-wise. We'll talk about him later. But her ability was Word Web, which places a nasty web, which can be used every other turn with a limit of 1 at a time. And I'm sorry about the explanations for some of these mechanics, but they were very convoluted and a little bit vague. So even I don't really understand them looking back at them now. But what the nasty web did, what the nasty web did, it was a trap. It was a trap that you could play on the board, and steppers were made immobile for 1 turn. And originally, I made it so that they lose 1 stamina. And yes, that is a good effect. But even if I kept that, I did change it so that it just made them immobile. But we're gonna go off of the original concept that it made them immobile and got rid of 1 stamina. It's still very bad.
Still pretty shit, though.
The stats on Miss Widow are terrible, and it's a trap. So the originally characters could see the trap, so they could try their best to. I mean, it's still ultimately based on RNG, so I guess it doesn't make much of a difference. But it's completely luck dependent.
Yeah, completely.
And you can only use them every other turn, and you can only have 1 trap at a time. So if that trap is there and nobody steps on it, the ability
does not have one.
It doesn't exist until the trap is stepped on. It can't be used again. So unless somebody steps on that trap, Miss Widow is just a 2/2/2 unit with no abilities.
Terrible.
Yeah, very bad unit. Very bad character. Practically unusable. I would argue that 6 is much, much worse than her, but she's still one of the worst characters, and definitely probably the worst masquerade in the entire game. Probably. Theoretical game, of course. But yeah, that was her. And the big man himself, well, not the biggest big man, but
Big man.
The big man, Dogmantic. You will see him. Spoiler alert.
You will.
You will see him.
Maybe already have if you watch the trailer.
Yeah, maybe you already have. But Dogmantic was probably one of the best, if not the best, masquerader in this non-existent theoretical game. Looking at the stats, he has standard movement, and his stamina was very high. It actually used to be lower. It used to be 5. It used to be 5.
He's still broken.
Yeah, he's still kind of not.
His ability is OP.
Yeah, he's still not balanced, but yeah, he used to have 5 stamina. He has 4 now.
He has above average stats.
Yeah.
And his ability counters a lot of other characters.
Yeah, so his ability, Gain said, disables enemy abilities in struggle, so abilities of misfits. So basically, if he fights them, if they had an effect that boosted their stats or did anything in relation to struggle, it would be disabled. And because he has naturally superior stats, if that misfit was balanced in a way where maybe their stats were bad and the ability would compensate for their bad stats, it'd basically just be Dogmantic is fighting a unit with bad stats and no ability, and he curb stomps them. So because of that, so he's not very balanced.
This big bully.
Yeah, big bully. Dogmantic is your stereotypical abusive father, master of the belt, and ginger ale. He is pretty. I think he's relevant. He's gonna get relevant. Yeah, I think at the comic at some point. Yeah, he will be relevant.
And sometime he'll be a bit relevant.
And his counterpart,
you all know him very well.
Yeah, I won't talk about who his counterpart is, but
you should know.
If you know who it is, kudos to you, I guess. And the man of the hour, the big bad Can is the next one we're talking about here.
Is he fucking bastard?
Yeah, you can talk about Can. Talk about Can and his role in the comic, if you can.
Well, comic Can is not too different from the original, no? He is kind of like your stereotypical pure evil villain. He just wants to see the world burn. More specifically, he likes to see people he manipulates suffer. Mostly, he really, really does not like children. But he very much likes torturing them. In a way. Very evil, very just pure evil. Big businessman, capitalist still. That's about all those two. I'm not very deep, huh? Just a pure evil villain.
Yeah. That's who he was, and that's who he always was. Just your You're a manifestation of evil businessman and like everything ever.
He said this time he really hates children.
Yeah, and he really hates children. If we need to emphasize that again, he really hates children.
Reasons.
That's why he's the villain of Mismamon. He's a child eater. Not literally though.
I actually do a sketch of Ken with the child eater.
Yes. But onto his stats. His stats are average: 2 movement, 3 stamina, 3 range. Nothing special, but not bad. The real interesting thing here is his ability, Selling Lies, so after struggle, if Kane gets into a fight, all other masqueraders get +1 stamina for 1 round, and the downside to this is that he can't capture misfits.
I can't remember my opinion on this.
But I think he's good. I don't think he's a bad unit. I think
he was alright though.
Yeah, he was. He's not bad. He's not a bad.
Not très bien, just bien.
He does fine. He's not a bad unit. I think this can be useful if using a dogmatic and you really need to curb stomp a specific character. Like I don't know, maybe Annie ramped up or something. You want to get rid of her.
The old Annie.
Huh?
Get there when we get there.
Yeah, Annie. Now, I think Annie was one of the better misfits as well. But Kane, I think Kane is a useful character. If this, theoretical game ever was a thing, I think he'd be useful. I think the ability is useful for a lot of reasons. And his stats are still suitable. So he could wear down a lot of... He could possibly wear down your target while also buffing other masqueraders. So he could allow for a sort of masquerader invasion.
He has a lot of range.
Yeah, you wear down one of their misfits, and then you buff all other masqueraders, and then maybe they'll have the stats, because like most masqueraders have 2-3-3, so they have dogmatic stats when you buff them at that point after the Kane effect. So all of them get very strong, and if some of them have good abilities, then it becomes a very powerful thing, him getting the ability off. So I think Kane is a good unit. Not a bad character. I know there was a limit as to how many masqueraders and how many misfits you could have
I think it was
in a battle, but I can't remember.
6 in your party and 3 on the field.
Yeah, I think 6 misfits in your party and then 3 on the field. And if a misfit or masquerader gets withdrawn or anything like that, you could switch them out for a different character if you wish.
I think that was it.
Yeah, that was it. I think it was just 6 and 3 on the field per time, which is I know, and for most people, this is probably the dumbest game mechanic ever, but I did not know how stupid it was at the moment. So my apologies.
Growing pains.
And we don't need to talk about this one. We don't talk about bad blah. We don't talk about bad blah. We'll just skip that one.
Why did he even mention it though? You know what I mean?
We'll just ignore this. The other one. Okay, Nicole. I like Nicole. I don't think you thought much about this unit when I did it.
I thought she was alright.
Yeah, I like her though. Conceptually, I like her. I think it's quite funny.
Relevant at the time, no? Relevant at the time?
Yeah. Up to a point, it was relevant. I think.
You know.
During the pandemic and stuff. If you know what it is, I think it's quite funny, looking at this unit now. For those of you who still don't get it, she is the generic anti-vax, no mask person. Her ability, it's my body. This allows her stats from being altered by other characters' abilities. So this is actually pretty bad. Now that I think about Kane's existence, this just means that she can't get buffed by Kane.
Yes.
So she's actually pretty bad, because if we're talking about the current roster, I don't think any misfits have abilities that reduce the stats of masqueraders. So this ability is actually more of a detriment than a benefit in this current meta.
Does Ashley count?
Ashley? Oh yeah, I forgot about the your characters, Mechode. When we get there, we'll maybe do a bit of a comparison between how good, in the grand scheme of things, some of these characters are.
Which side was better?
Yeah.
You vote.
Yeah, which side was better?
I know he is.
Which side was better, my side or his side? Yeah, meat or metal. But if we're just talking about my selection of characters, Nicole was probably one of the worst masqueraders as well, just because the effect wasn't good. If it was just... Yeah, the stats are fine, but if I made it so that her stats going to be altered by misfits, it would be a lot better, but that also doesn't fit thematically nearly as much. And that was like the last masquerader worth talking about anyway.
The others aren't finished.
The rest are unfinished. So on to the Misfits.
My favorite.
There's a lot to unpack here. I mean, we already talked about Shroda, but there are a lot of other Misfits to talk about, I think. A lot of the ones at the far top there, did not get their stats put in. They're just kind of there.
They were the first.
Yeah, they were the first though. There was Dirk, the guy with the long legs and the fleas, and Poppy, the one up there. You know what I'm talking about.
The really squiggly arms.
Yes. What was his name? Dante, right?
Dante.
Dante, the cat.
The fucking cat.
The cat kid.
The literal cat.
And Egghead, which you will see in the comic, hopefully. The French girl there, I don't remember her name. There was Penny and the man, the myth, the legend, Chatterbox, which you saw, I think. You should have seen in the other one there. Chatterbox is
you all know him already.
great. He is I think he is the first Misfit I ever did. He was the first Misfit I ever made. He was the first.
The first.
And he stuck with us and Mismamon as a whole since the beginning.
He is the legacy.
He is one of the main characters of the comic too, as well, right? He is one of the most important characters out there. He is just an eternal being entity. King Chatterbox.
King Chatterbox.
Yeah, he's very important. I didn't do his stats though. I just brought him back here.
Very important.
Kind of wish I did know. I think I didn't know what he would do. Just a little bit of a note. Chatterbox at this stage, he was ruined to not be able to talk, but he can talk in the comics, so
he can.
There are a few differences there.
The main reason for that is if he would not be able to talk, there would be not counting any one, I guess, two misfits who can talk.
Yeah, that's a very small selection.
Which means half the cast would not be able to talk.
Yeah, that's too much. It's pretty hard to
I thought I could still get across his trauma without completely limiting his speech.
Yeah.
The other two don't make sense for the kind.
Yeah, it makes sense, but with Chatterbox, it's a little bit unnecessary, I think. But yeah, there's a lot. I could go over the names.
Like he wanted the pawn, no?
Yeah.
Chatterbox.
So from top to bottom, left to right, we'll go over the names. So we got Poppy, then Dirk, then Dante, then Egghead, French girl, I don't remember the name of, Penny, Chatterbox, Fuse, Samuel, self-insert, ignore. At the bottom, next to Shroda, we got Jekyll High,
and
6, and then next to 6 is Shelly Shocked, which isn't one of my characters actually.
One of me.
Shelly Shocked was actually made by Mechode before me, one of his entries for. And I like the design so much that I tried to kind of do it in my own way here and put it in the little lineup. But Shelly Shocked is actually one of Mechode's. And Shelly Shocked and Rat King, those two. And you should have seen those in the comic already if you read issue 2. And then we got at the bottom, the last row is Ayamari, Annie, Love Handles, and Rasputin, which is also getting in.
Later you will see.
I'm sure it'll be fun to read about. But that's the entire roster practically in here that we've got. So we'll talk about what we have stats wise in here. Okay, this is a bit of concept art, I think. You can see Rasputin concept art there. There's a bit of Love Handles as well. Okay, so let's look for some actually relevant images to talk about. Okay, we got Fuse, 6, and Jekyll High over here. We'll talk about Fuse first. So I don't know if Fuse's thematic situation is completely obvious here, but yeah, he's poor. He is he's an impoverished child. That's basically what 6 is. He has been affected by a plethora of different factors.
Fuse and not 6. Fuse.
Yeah, Fuse. Sorry, I meant Fuse. Sorry, not 6. Fuse has been affected by a plethora of different real world factors that put him in this undesirable situation, and he's basically a nod to children who live in impoverished families who struggle to, I guess, find hope in society and who kind of gravitate towards delinquency as a way to have a purpose and to feel accepted in society and to feel like they have something to, I guess, put towards in their life.
On vive society!
Yeah, we live in a society, as Joker said. So his stats are standard. He's a 2 mover with 3 stamina and 3 range, and his ability, which is especially useful, Retaliation, reduces the stamina of an opponent by 1 at the end of struggle. So
very good.
This is actually very useful because if he loses, if he technically loses a fight and he loses by 1 stamina, so his opponent has 1 stamina left, this can actually turn the fight into a tie. So, for example, if he was fighting Dogmatic and he somehow, God forbid, almost defeated him, the ability would actually save him, and instead of getting captured by Dogmatic, they'd both get withdrawn because they both run out of stamina. So it's actually very useful.
I saw this game as a somewhat Dogmatic counter at the time.
Yeah, sometimes. But unfortunately, Dogmatic disables this ability when they fight, so it doesn't apply to him.
Where it happens after this record.
Oh, right after. Oh, yeah. After. So it will actually take into effect. He does actually counter him for that reason because
somewhat anyway.
Yeah. He's one of the misfits with like the greatest chance of defeating him in a battle because of that. And then we have 6, which I think is unequivocally dog shit. He's unwashed ass.
Fucking snare.
I think he's the worst character in the entire game. The main problem is his movement. It's fucking 1. For some reason, I don't know why I did this. I guess my justification was that he is a toddler, so
he dog shit.
Tiny little legs. He's gonna be slow. I guess was my justification, but 1 movement is very bad. The dice rolls don't even really help. Because if you don't get a consistently good roll, you're going to be still moving very slowly most of the time. The stamina is fine, and the range is fine, but the movement kind of just weighs everything down like very heavily. And this was all under the justification that the ability was the best in the game, even though it's actually
very shit.
It's fucking awful. So he's just terrible. He's like bad sushi from Phobies, practically.
Right, also.
Maybe worse, I don't know. I guess it's more like Doom. I think, like, you rate the ability so highly and then you give him some, like, very crappy stats and then it's just a bad unit because of that. No, it's fucking Whiskers. That's what it is. It's goddamn Whiskers. That's what this is.
What is going on? These viewers are not the gamers? Or
yeah.
What it is.
But he's bad. So, Bad Luck places a demon with a limit of 1 tile with a limit of 1 at a time, must wait 6 rounds to use again if stepped on, is removed after 3 rounds. If so, can place again immediately. So, in human language, that means that you can place a demon, only 1 at a time. So, if you have a demon out, you can't play another. And you gotta wait 6 rounds to place another demon, so that's the cooldown, practically, which is really long, obviously. That is insanely long, 6 rounds. Get it, 6 rounds to use it again. And the cooldown is only effective if it gets stepped on. So if it doesn't get stepped on, the cooldown doesn't even start. So it's really bad, basically. And if nobody steps on it, in the span of 3 rounds, it just gets automatically removed, and then the cooldown is in effect. So it's actually very, very bad. It's a very bad ability. I think I just wasn't knowledgeable enough about game design at this point to make these complicated mechanics work properly. They're very bad.
Oh, theoretical.
Yeah, they're very theoretical as well, so it's very hard to really gauge them. But it sucks. Demons are basically just monsters. They act as a monster tile, but they don't give the Masqueraders a player, so they're entirely negative with the Masquerader player, which is would obviously be like useful if you can only place 1 and the character that's using this ability, is practically useless. Because 6 is practically useless instead of that. He's too slow to do anything. He's too slow to engage in combat, and he doesn't have a lot of health, so Dogmatic would still whop his ass. And he's too slow to escape. He's never escaping. Let's be realistic. He is too slow to escape. He's basically just free food for any Masquerader.
Waiting to die.
Yeah, he's waiting to die. And then we got Jekyll High, which I would... Yeah, Jekyll High. So Jekyll High is if you didn't get the joke already, he is a toddler who with a sugar problem, as you can see. That's basically his shtick. Nothing
dramatic, no?
Yeah, nothing too traumatic. It's just more of a little, a bit more of a silly idea, I think.
Always welcome.
But Jekyll Hyde is, I think if I remember correctly, I thought Jekyll Hyde was good. I
It was
think
pretty good, though. Really
so.
fast.
2 movement, 3 stamina, and 2 range. So a little bit below average range, but it's not a big deal. And his ability Sugar Rush. By the way, these abilities. Most of them are active, so you can use them when you want to use them. But some of them, like Fuse's Retaliation, are passive. So you should probably get that just by reading. But I should have probably stated when they were active abilities and when they were passive. But Sugar Rush is active, so you can use it when you want to use it. So when you use it, Jekyll Hyde's movement becomes 4 for 2 rounds. Then it becomes 1 for another 2, and then it reverts. And you must wait 1 round to use it after that. So there's a 1 turn cooldown, basically, a 1 round cooldown after using it. So it's basically just accurate to the legitimate concept of Sugar Rush. There is this high, and then there is this low, and then you stabilize. That's basically how it is. So this is very useful if you want to escape very quickly.
Very good.
Yeah, it's very good. If you manage to get off the monsters and Jekyll Hyde's abilities ready, you can just run away
3 points.
and win, basically. So
Very useful.
very useful, yeah. I guess that's why his stats aren't too good, so that it's not like, oh, he can fight and he can run away.
Not too bad either.
Yeah, they're not bad, but they're not good.
Not good, not bad. Good abilities.
He's useful for escaping, I think. One of the most useful misfits for that. So in spite of, misfits having some decent tools, they were still just mechanically overpowered by Masquerade just because of the general balancing wasn't good enough to support them. It just wasn't well balanced, but some of these characters weren't as bad as they could have been. So what's next? Who else do we get to talk about here? Alright, we got Rasputin, Ayamari, and Annie. I think those are the other ones. Those were the other misfits. We'll start with Rasputin, another misfit here. I don't think I need to explain what he's based on. Yeah, I don't think I need to explain. He's got 2 movement, 3 stamina, and 2 range. His ability: when struggle occurs or misfit has a negative experience, he gains +1 rage, and when in struggle, he converts all the rage to stamina, which at that point, at the end of the struggle, all the rage will be removed and his stats will revert back to normal if he doesn't die. I think this is good.
Very good.
But he's kind of outclassed by Annie, sort of. I guess they're different. It depends on what the strategy is. It depends, because negative experiences, I think, count as fighting monsters, getting captured, and being negatively affected by players and or traps or effects.
So if Fuse fights Domatic and they both get withdrawn, does it count negative?
Yeah, it counts as a negative.
Oui.
So basically anything bad, like anything remotely bad for you in any capacity. So like, if let's say one of your misfits stepped on Miss Widow's trap, that counts as a negative experience and he gets rage and stuff like that, which is kind of good since the trap is pretty bad, so it doesn't affect you very much.
Well, hypothetically, if this was a real game, I don't think anyone would play Miss Widow anyway.
Yeah. But still, it's useful, and his stats aren't bad. They're the same as Jekyll Hyde's. Yeah, they are the same. So not good, but not bad. And plus, with the rage, that can turn into something very useful.
Pretty easy to ramp up.
Yeah. Then next is Ayamari, and he's a bit more difficult to guess, but he's basically he's basically your neglected child who was not given attention by their parents, who has developed a sort of self-loathing and who wants attention and just generally doesn't like themselves because of that.
Poor boy, he's attention.
Yeah. Why don't they like me is basically what he asks himself. This is kind of a common thing that happens with neglected children who don't receive attention from their parents. They kind of grow to have self-esteem issues and kind of question their value as a human being. So this is something that happens quite frequently. So that is what he's based on.
And his ability, moi.
Yeah, love me. He gets +2 stamina when in struggle. And if we're talking about the non-increased stats, he had 1 movement, which is, we already talked about how bad that is. but he had 2 stamina
Which is
and
awful.
4 range, which is a lot. So with the ability, he was a 144, which is actually quite strong.
Oui.
And when I buffed him, I gave him 3 stamina, so he'd be a 154.
But the problem with this is
The movement.
dogmatic.
Yeah, dogmatic is the problem. Dogmatic completely counters Ayamari.
Dog shit.
Yeah, he completely defeats his entire existence. He just devalidates his ability completely with his. So he's good. I'd say he's decent into other masqueraders, but against Dogmatic, he's completely useless.
Completely useless.
I think Dogmatic would be meta because he just counters
It would be.
so many characters. Like he counters Rasputin too because in Struggle that Reyes gets converted into stamina, so Dogmatic would just negate the conversion and he wouldn't get the boost. So he really stops a lot of these buffing type misfits. The only one he doesn't counter is Annie, which we'll get into right now.
See, that's the one.
Yeah. Annie may or may not be the best one. I don't know, but she is definitely one of the better misfits. So Annie is just nothing too dramatic. Just a very determined little girl who wants to be an astronaut.
Are we not going to mention the reference?
The reference? There is no reference.
Very obvious reference.
There is no reference here.
She wants to be an astronaut. The ability called Plus Ultra.
There is no reference. There is no reference.
I see something here.
There is no reference here. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
I just like the word the phrase plus ultra.
Where's it come from?
Oh, it's a if I remember correctly, it's I think a Latin word or something like that.
You lie.
It means I forgot. It's not what it looks like.
It is. I assure you.
I know this word outside of the context that he's implying. I know. No, this is not a reference to anything. Back to the stats. Standard sort of 2 movement, 3 stamina, but 2 range, so about the same as Raz and Jekyll High. And the ability plus ultra, not a reference by the way, is the real thing here. Gain plus 2 stamina and plus 2 movement. Then plus 1 stamina and plus 1 movement continuously every time a misfit is captured. So if one misfit got captured alone, she would be a 4 movement character with 5 stamina and 2 range, which is already very strong. And what's good about this is that Dogmatic can't counter this because it happens before struggle. So it will take effect before, and it's only during capturing. So she can have like very, very broken stats throughout the course of a game if you don't get rid of her early on, if you capture other characters. So
even if just one misfit gets captured, she's the strongest character.
She's very, very strong. So very good character. I want to say she's broken. I feel like there's probably ways to get around this, but it's very strong. It's definitely very strong. Because I feel like if you managed to capture every other misfit and you still had masqueraders left, you could probably still wear her down enough to win.
That's it.
Yeah. So I don't think it's completely hopeless for masqueraders
if she take her down, get rid of her allies, and take her down herself.
Yeah.
Or even if she leaves, you still have more points.
And plus, if you it doesn't matter because if you capture, so there's a bit of a balancing act here. If you want Annie to get the stats, so you're gonna, I don't know if you probably want at least one of your misfits getting captured, and you
only want one.
Yeah, or you could use her as a sort of a rebound character where you use her normally because her stats aren't bad. You could use her normally, and in case a misfit gets captured, maybe you made a misplay or the masqueraders outplayed you, you could use the boosted Annie as a sort of a comeback mechanic where, okay, you captured my character, but I have this boosted Annie now, so have fun dealing with that. That's a bit of an interesting way to look at it as well. So, because I don't think you would really want to play into her ability, because if you let the other misfits get captured, you're just going to lose because the masqueraders will just have more points than you, so it doesn't really matter. So I think it's a lot more interesting that you have to be a little bit more careful. Ogre, kind of like Ogre from Phobies, yeah. I'm sorry with the outside references, but I had to make the parallel here. I think that was the last set of misfits. I think it was. It was just these 3, and then
not many, but not many.
There weren't a lot of characters. I don't think.
At least your stats anyway.
Yeah, there weren't a lot of stats. We had a lot of characters, but I didn't do all of their stats. At this point, I feel like it was kind of left pretty quickly. And yeah, that's about Mismamon 2. That is...
Alright, I have one question for you.
What question?
Why did you decide to make it all in black and white? I like how it looks.
That, my friend, so for those of you who didn't get the French gibberish there,
I just something.
he asked me why everything is in black and white, and to answer that, it was a coping mechanism. I was very insecure about my art at this point.
Quite fitting.
Yeah, I didn't think I could properly execute color at this stage, so I just thought, I'll just do it in black and white. And a lot of my art was in black and white, and a lot of my art still is in black and white, but that's more of a choice now. I think it just complements a lot of the tones and themes of the art a lot more, because I do make art in color now. I don't avoid color. I love color now, but I still come back to black and white now and then because I like it, not because I'm avoiding color. But early stage, I was just avoiding color because I thought I wasn't capable of using it properly. So that kind of bled into Mismamon, and even current Mismamon, the comic is in black and white. I think, in spite of the origins of that decision making, I think it made her.
Really stuck.
It made the brand of Mismamon. I feel like it made it.
I do like in black and white.
Yeah, it did make it what it was today, I think, and I think it does fit the tone of Mismamon a lot better when there's no color. So in spite of the origins of that decision making, I think it was a positive decision.
Quite fitting at the end.
Yeah. But that is Mismamon 2, aka the theoretical board game that never got made. And before
now, the best part.
Yeah, well, we talk about
Second best part.
Before we move on to the comic, we're gonna talk about the characters that
Wow.
Mechode made. Since all of these were my characters, so we'll talk about that now. Is this all of them?
Is it all?
Okay, there isn't a mock-up, so we'll just go image by image and talk about. Yeah, we'll talk about the ones that we can talk about.
Let's not talk about them.
Do you even want to go on this page at all?
Nope, let's not.
Okay, we'll start with Ashley. Both versions of Ashley. We'll start with the classic version. The one that's in the comic, the marketable Pikachu.
Yes, very marketable. Oui, maintenant.
All right. Do you want to take it away with this one?
Yeah, sure. So actually, if we're talking origin-wise, at the time, I didn't really consciously think about it, but I guess it was very slightly inspired by Scotch Girl from Le Botanico. Very, very. I was not thinking about it, but after making it, I was like, oh, kind of similar to that, huh?
I thought you were gonna say Amy Winfrey or something.
What? No.
It does kind of look like.
That is true. Those are simplistic style.
It does look pretty similar to her stuff.
I do like my Amy Winfrey, but at the time it was Scotch Girl.
I did think of that too, as well, but.
The whole origin for her is, I think I already explained this before some other time, but she is a little girl caught in a house fire, but she is too naive to understand the situation she's in, so she just smells it. Oh, me no. Very nice. So actually, she's 2 stamina, 30 movement, 3 range. Now range, at least in my opinion, isn't too important for Miss Fins, but considering her stat, she right, so to be fitting that she not have too much stamina.
I think the most important stat for Misfits is health and movement. I think especially movement is the most important stat probably.
That is true. The ability horoscope, this one's passive. I thought this was okay. Maybe I'm underestimating it. So every time she takes a step, every tile behind her catches on fire and places a special tile. Any masculine that steps on the tile, they stop moving. They completely stop. For example, if a Dogmatic moved, let's say 4 tiles and he steps on Ashley's tile, in the second step, he just stops moving completely.
Oh, so when you say it ignores overstepping, it still takes effect, right? Or so even if they don't directly land until they just go over it, they'll still stop.
No. If they step on the tile.
Oh, they have to step on it.
Yeah, so if they step on it, they just don't move at all.
So they can't. So if they can just walk through it if they have more movement.
They cannot. They just stop. Cannot walk through it.
So if they come into contact in any way, it doesn't matter if that was their last tile. So if they were moving 5 and it was the force shell that walked past, as long as they came into contact hit, at any point they just stopped. That's actually very strong. I think that's very strong. It's basically a roadblock, I think.
Well, let's forget it's with low range anyway.
It has low range though. It's based on her range?
No. I'm saying if a Masquerade has lots of range, they can somewhat bypass it.
Yeah, they can somewhat if they have a lot of range, but
she has very bad stamina, so she is.
I think it's not bad because it's a trap, and the other thing I didn't mention about traps is that traps can be placed anywhere on the map you want.
Oui.
So you could use this in like very good situations, like for example, if another misfit was in danger, so you could put this behind them so that they can't be captured by like maybe a Dogmatic was chasing them, and Dogmatic has very poor range, so you could stop him and he can't get the misfit that turn, and that could be very useful for you.
Oui.
So I think she's actually pretty useful. That ability, I think it's useful. Hopscotch.
She's just very fragile.
Yeah, it's very fragile, but I think it's useful if you get her to I guess the risk is that. Oh, sorry. I said it was a trap. It's not a trap. It's a passive. Sorry, it's a passive. Sorry. Whatever she walks on is going to become Ember. So it's a bit risky because you have to kind of run around the map and you have to go where you want. Like if you're trying to protect another misfit, you need to kind of walk in that area and then walk back. Try to cover as much ground as possible to maximize the potential of a Masquerader getting the Ember effect. But I still think this is useful, even though there's a few risks to it. So I'd say she's pretty good. No, actually 2.0.
The concept of this one was there was a time the way I was doing it was I would do usually a misfit and another misfit or misfit and the Masquerader counterpart. But at the time I did not have no. So before Ashley I made a Lucifera, which I'll get to later. So I made Ashley after Lucifera, but since she was on a different page, I thought to myself, what could I do? And I thought, Ashley as a teenager, I suppose. Which does not come within the comic.
It's not canon. This
not
one,
canon.
This Ashley is not canon.
Unfortunately, this one has adopted a mother's addiction.
Yeah.
So this Ashley has the exact same stats as the other one. 2-3-3. 2 stamina, 2 movement, 3 range. This time her ability stamps him out. Replaces the fake tags walked over with a cigarette. Now the cigarette, it just removes the stamina for 3 turns. It's not permanent. It basically just temporarily gives the Masquerader -1 stamina. And this one seems a bit less good.
I think it's less, and it's the same mechanic if they're...
No, this one
overstep.
Basically she's immune to fake tiles and she transforms them, but she does not have the infinite tile thing anymore.
The what?
The multi-tile thing.
Or it replaces effect tile. Sorry, I wasn't reading it properly. That's actually a lot less good. That's a lot more conditional.
Immune to fake tiles.
Yeah.
Basically.
It's not bad, but I think you need to set this up. I think she's good with original Ashley if you want to actually spam the cigarettes. Because she could walk over original Ashley's effect tiles and change them into cigarettes, and then that could be an interesting combination.
Well, if you get that to work anyway.
But the effect is a little bit more situational, I feel like, because if you don't actually capitalize off of the -1 stamina, it doesn't really make a difference. You need to kind of fight them. So you could pair Ashley with Ashley, and then pair her with maybe a stronger character like Fuse or Rasputin, and then you could very easily take advantage of the weakened Masquerader and just beat them to a bloody pulp at that point.
Otherwise, I think she's alright.
Yeah, she's not bad, but a little bit more support needed, I think, to truly shine.
The original is truly best, though.
Yeah. Alright, next page. So we've got Sheldon. Sheldon and Lucifera. Masqueraders. No? I guess we should first talk about Lucifera, since that's a bit relevant to Ashley in some way.
Madame Lucifera.
Yeah, so who is Lucifera?
Well, at the time, Lucifera was just... it was kind of funny actually. While I was making this, I think you were also making Ken at the time. So while I was making this, I thought, maybe I should have a demon character or something, you know. And I arrived at Lucifera. I like my VA. So VA, demon. So Lucifera. At the time, she was just kind of similar to Ken, pure evil, kind of charismatic villain type. with a little smoking addiction at the time. Now she is much more complex, but before she was just the evil smoke addict. Who is also Ash's mother. She calls the house fire if you want context.
Okay. All right, and the stats. I guess I'll go over this one. So we've got 2 stamina, pretty sensible for a smoking addict. 3 movement and 3 range, and the
Same stats as I thought.
yeah, same stats as I think Ashley, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, same stats, and the special ability, which is active, right? It's active.
active.
Yeah, active ability. Shake my hand. So with this ability, you can make a deal with the opposing player, so the team misfits. If they accept the deal, a misfit of your choice is captured, but 2 monsters are instantly defeated. If they decline the offer, you can roll a die, and if you roll a 6, you can force a deal. But you can only use this effect once per game. And by the effect, I mean the forcing of deal, I think. You can still roll you can still offer a deal multiple times, but the forcing of a deal can only be done once, if it happens at all. This is obviously very niche. It's very niche. This is a very strange.
Very strange. I mostly just wanted something that would impact the game immense, but it's not quite easy to activate.
Yeah, it's quite a strange thing, especially with the deal, because I don't think the opponent, if they know what they're doing, would accept the deal unless it's more convenient for them than it is for you.
Exactly. That's why the dice is there, but that is not a efficient way to.
It's not reliable, and your stats are bad.
With a pretty terrible.
So it's quite an interesting game plan you're going with here if you choose to use Lucifer over other characters.
Mostly just for spies.
Yeah, I don't think she's terrible, but there is a lot of luck in regards to that. But I guess that's the point.
It's for fun.
Yeah, it was mostly for fun anyway. Okay, next is Sheldon.
Egg.
Talk about Sheldon now.
Okay, Sheldon. Sheldon is Papa. Another character, another shady, different one, was an egg. Basically, the idea behind him was he's an overprotective father, helicopter parent. Fears for his daughter's safety, maybe a little too much. Put her, shackled her to the ground, and that is why they are both eggs. They're kind of afraid of the outside world, so they hide inside their shells. That is him, he offers the protective parent. Since he's the king, no? The Sheldon 5 stamina, 1 movement and 1 range, very, very made. His ability, King Shackles, which is, I guess, my way to try to compensate for the very bad range and movement. He chooses a target and they get binded by his shackle. They get -2 movement, but can only be captured by him. Speed cannot be less than 1. Pretty bad, if I thought to think about it a little bit.
I don't think it's that bad. I feel like this, and the effect is permanent, right? It's permanent. This can be interesting, I think.
I think this is mostly good against the messages of already lower.
Yeah, I think so, but...
But the thing about that is that they just put them on his level.
Yeah.
So it's at that point, just very little dependent. Yeah. They already have a head start anyway, so maybe if you could find a way to slow them down in other ways, it might work.
Yeah, I think it's not only about Sheldon catching. I think it's very crippling, and I think what could happen here is that if there was a clutch situation where a misfit was maybe very close to escaping, you could use Sheldon's shackles to cripple them and have a stronger masquerader, maybe a strong masquerader like Dogmantic, reach them and withdraw them. So even though Sheldon can only capture them, you could still use other masqueraders to get them out of the game for a turn, which can be very useful if you're stopping them from escaping. So, I don't think he's bad. I think he's actually quite good and useful in certain team combinations for that reason, because he's still a good fighter if he gets in. Maybe if you get him in at some point, he can become a very big obstacle for the misfits. And with the shackles, maybe there's this game-breaking situation where you're maybe at odds with the other player and this one misfit is like the tiebreaker. If they escape, you lose. So you could use Sheldon to stop them from getting to the escape door, and using like a faster but stronger but still strong masquerader like Dogmatic to defeat them, maybe not capture them, but withdraw them, and then at that point you can very easily take advantage of the board and maybe reposition with Sheldon.
Oui.
So I think he's good.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I think he's good.
Maybe not so bad as I thought.
Yeah, I don't think he's bad. Although I do think if you fail to use his ability properly, he becomes a very big liability. Yeah.
Well, not bad.
Yeah, not bad. All right. Third page.
I guess we should cover it just for Franken.
We'll talk about Franken and Puta. This other guy is kind of a joke. He's
Oui.
inside joke. We're not going to talk about this guy.
Oui, not important. The Franken and Puta,
Yeah.
which some of you may know now as Frenny, more very, very mignon. Oui? So, her deal is this is a bit of a spoiler, I suppose. She's how do I say this without spoiling too much?
You can talk about like the general concept or the inspiration, but maybe
inspiration
not.
was you know those little fillet, the mother forced him to do a beauty pageant. He's obsessed with the appearance something to do with their past. They were hurt by the almost or something like that, so they forced their daughters to compete in this sort of thing, even though they don't want to. You know, scream at them, you don't look beautiful enough, or things like that. Very much hurts their emotion. This was based off of, but in a much, much darker way.
Yeah.
Which I will get to eventually.
Yeah, eventually. But to the stats, we've got 4 stamina, which is good, but terrible mobility and range, with the 1 movement and 1 range. So in a similar situation to Sheldon, I think. The ability, which is friendly makeover, stats can be reversed if a misfit is 2 tiles away.
Oui.
So that's an active ability. You can choose to activate it. It's activatable. It's an active ability. So if you reverse the stats, what gets reversed? What gets changed?
The only thing that's reversed is the health and the movement.
So the health and the movement switch.
The switch becomes 1 and 4 for 1.
So the health becomes 1 and the movement becomes 4.
Oui.
Okay. That is very interesting, I think. And that's very risky. I think she's just an inferior version of Jekyll Hyde, I think, from what I'm understanding. It's very risky. What is good about this is though that, I mean, technically the effect could last infinitely if you keep her safe, but with the 1 stamina, it's very easy for her to get withdrawn or captured.
Oui.
If she accidentally steps on it with Miss Widow Trap, she's just out of the game.
If that happens.
If it happens somehow. So it's interesting, but also very, very risky. So maybe I think she needs a lot of support to function properly.
Oui.
But definitely another one of those rush down misfits who just want to escape as fast as humanly possible once the door opens up.
Oui.
I find her function to be a little bit iffy when that state. So I'm starting to notice like maybe prime times for some of these characters. Some of these characters are good early game for just generalized things with their general stats. Some of them are good mid game for combat, and then some of them are good late game with their high movement where they can escape once the doors are open. So characters like Jekyll Hyde and Franken and Puta would be their prime time would be late game when the door is probably open. But the problem with specifically Franken and Puta is that her stats are so bad, both with and without the ability activated, that she just sounds bad, like terrible in all other game stats. She sounds bad early game and she sounds bad late game, so she does sound like a very big liability.
Yeah, theoretically, she could fight, but if her health gets too low, her movement will
it will drop, so I think maybe if there was like a buffing character, a character that could recover stamina, maybe she'd be better. But her ranges also and movement are also terrible, so how is she getting to fight that way? It's very unlikely.
She is attacked.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah, I think her stats would have to be augmented by allies. Maybe other misfits with like a buffing ability, maybe, or maybe some weird teleportation.
I'm not sure there's one like that.
Yeah, I think she's lower tier, but I don't think she's the worst. Maybe if other misfits existed that could support this, she would have a better role. Mm-hmm. But I do think Jekyll Hyde is currently outclasses her with her role, yeah.
Ah, poor girl.
Yeah, poor girl indeed. Alright, next page.
Ah,
Shelly shocked, and
no.
Shelly also. 2 Shellys.
Which one first?
Which one first? We'll go with Shelly shocked.
Ah.
Take it away.
So Shelly, again, if you read the comic, you should have seen her and her friend Ratkin. I think this image is pretty obvious. She's wearing a soldier helmet. Her ear is missing. And she has that face. I think you know what this is. Pretty well. Well, she has a 6 stamina for movement and 2 range.
Good stats.
Very good, actually. Très bien, très bien. And you might be thinking, why is he so good, huh? Well, because of the ability, of course. Nightmare Fuel. After an interaction with a monster, gain a stack of Sheer Shock or Withdraw. Now, Sheer Shock removes 1 stamina and 1 movement from Shelly. So, theoretically, after only monster? Hey,
There's 3.
3 monsters.
So there's usually more, but the minimum requirement you have to defeat to open the doors is 3.
So you could have 3 health and 1 movement at worst, which is okay. The movement is pretty bad, but the health is stuff.
And there's still range there.
Still range. I feel you would do it. You would use it to fight.
Yeah, I don't think you would use it for that.
Fighting?
I mean, for the monsters.
You would not fight them. Use it to fight. Yes, Zemo stamina. Well, right next to us usually, which we'll get to. So far, and a lot of movement and okay range, so she could very easily get into fights.
Yeah.
She seems like a very good early game.
I think she's very good mid game. Specifically, she might be meta. I don't know, but she seems very good to me. These stats are very strong. I think she has a very big place in mid game because of this. Because you could just ignore the monsters or have another character deal with them for her.
You can just get into position to take them.
Yeah. You take out the monsters and then you just have Shelly Shock advance because she has a lot of movement. Like she just seems good in like all stages of the game because early game is fine. You could technically still use her to get rid of monsters early game if you want to. I just don't think that's optimal play. Mid game she can fight, and because of her movement she can escape pretty easily late game. Like if we're going back to Franken and Puta, she has to cripple herself to have 4 movement, while Shelly Shock just has it innately.
Well, I guess this is true.
Yeah, I think she's actually quite good. Probably maybe the best one here so far.
That is true. Looks like
very easy to capitalize off of. I think her stats. She's good early game. She's good mid game, and she's good late game. But I'd say her best prime times are mid game and late game, and especially mid game. So I think she's good. I don't think we'd ever use Nightmare Fuel or take or interact with it. So I think she's a little bit unbalanced. I feel there's no incentive to use it. There's no really incentive to use Nightmare Fuel or to interact with the effect.
Seems like a bit different.
Yeah, I feel like most people would just use her as a stat stick and just have her, take advantage of the stats and never interact with monsters. Yeah, quite strong, I think.
I guess I didn't think it's too much.
Yeah. And I guess on to the other Shelly.
The regular one.
Now take it above that one too.
So this Shelly, like I said before, is the daughter of Sheldon. She is inside a giant eggshell. Of course. She has a 6 stamina, movement, range. Pretty bad, except for the stamina. Scrambled brain is her ability. She cannot move unless there is a misfit at least 4 tiles away, which in eyesight is kind of fucking terrible.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. Like the stats don't make up for that. Even if she could move every, basically the ability is a handicap. It's practically a handicap, and even you know what this reminds me of? It just sounds like Snow White, but infinitely worse in every way. That's what it sounds like to me. Terrible. Like it's so bad. Even like it's already a chore to get her to move. like with Snow White, but there's a lot more incentive to move Snow White than her.
She does have any range.
And like what one movement is pointless with one range. It doesn't matter. And I think this is even worse than 6 because at least 6 can move whenever he wants to. With Shelly Shocked isn't escaping because she needs a Shelly, not Shelly Shocked. She needs to be paired with another character to escape. So that just puts the other character that's probably more viable in a very dangerous position if they need to leave, because they're going to be holding Shelly's hand, and maybe if there's masqueraders inching up on them, it becomes a very weird situation where I should get to the exit, but I need to walk Shelly to the exit as well. And she's one movement. And another thing, if you do this and you get a bad roll, you get 1, that is going to hurt very much. You bother to have a character 4 tiles away from her, or less. You roll Shelly to move, and then you get 1, and she moves 1 fucking tile.
Maybe you think she could be good with Snow White, since they both are very slow. They
could stimulate one another, but then you're playing at a very slow pace.
Well, at least they have very good
they have very good stats, but you're playing with very slow units, so it becomes an interesting thing. They might be good mid-game soldiers, maybe, their entire existence, maybe, but that is 2 out of your 3 characters. Again, I think this is more of a flaw with the game. I feel like, again, mechanics are so complicated, 3 characters isn't enough for like a balanced gameplay session. I think it's just not enough. But if we're going off of the original standards here, 3 that's most of your roster. And okay, let's just imagine there's more, because let's be real, 3 slots is fucking stupid. That's too little. Let's imagine there's like 5. You can have 5 characters, so that's 2 out of your 5 characters. 2 of them are very slow. That is actually not a bad idea, Mechode. You could use them as your little mid-game units, so your other characters maybe will compensate by being faster. Maybe faster paced units. They could fight monsters, maybe escape. And the other 2, when the masqueraders connect with you could use them as mid-game soldiers to fend them off, which can actually be very useful. So that's not a bad idea, I think.
If there are more, anyway.
Yeah, if there are more. I think pairing Shelly with Snow White isn't a bad idea in of itself. I don't think so at all. But yeah, on her own she sucks, an unwashed ass, but with Snow White or any other slow unit, I think she can serve her purpose.
She needs to support them.
Yeah. Alright.
My favorite.
Yeah, the main guy here. Start the show.
Everybody knows her, at least you should.
Yeah. Take it away with Annie.
Well, at this time he was just Angel. But when you write a story, everyone must have a name. So, for the fans, I refer to her as Annie. So Annie, everybody knows her, everybody maybe not loves her. She has two stamina, 2 movement, 2 range, 2 across the board. Not very good, but I guess it's slightly worse, Ashley. But the main thing is her ability. Give me proof. She is immune to all effects and she cannot be captured. Okay, before I continue with this question, I would just like to briefly mention her background. So obviously she is an angel, but like in the comic, she is quite skeptical of religion itself. And she is a big fan of conspiracies, but at the same time is quite suspicious of them. She likes to know the truth, and that is who she is.
Yeah. About the actual stats here, all of them are bad. They're not abysmal, but they're lackluster at best. The ability, though, is quite interesting because she can be affected by units like Dogmantic or Traps or anything like that. And she can be captured, and this is very interesting to me. This is, I don't know how useful this is in practice, but I think it could have a place, I think, mechanically. Because I feel like it's very easy to stop her from escaping. You just have to withdraw her. Like, her stats are so bad, you could just use, like, anything and stop her from getting to the exit. But I think she could be useful late game, maybe to sacrifice herself, ironically, to maybe force a fight with a masquerader to allow other misfits to get him, because she can't be captured. So what I mean by this is, if we're doing this mathematically, she gets into a fight with them, she loses probably, and I mean, if she wins, that's great, but she's probably going to lose, and what's good about that is that they won't get a point because they can't capture her.
She stalls for time.
Yeah, she stalls for time, and that does seems like what she specializes in here. So maybe you have this as like an emergency thing, because like if she escapes, that's good. But if she can't escape, you can use her as a little an emergency thing where this guy is trying to stop, I don't know, Jekyll Hyde from getting away or whatever. This low value angel is here. Let me just run it in at the guy and stop him, and you can use it as a tiebreaker, to make a point difference. Like if you need one more point over the other person, because she basically counts as a negative, like it's a 0 for the Masquerade. It's a 0. So I think she's actually interesting because she has potential to be good for you, and she has no potential to be good for the Masqueraders because the Masqueraders don't get a point out of her. Mm-hmm. So you could put her in and use her to block another character which is capable of being captured to stop them from getting points, basically. So maybe it's like a very bad situation for you where maybe you have 2 misfits that have escaped and the other person has captured almost all of your characters, but you need one more point to either get a tie or to stabilize a win, and all you have is Ashley and one other character. You could use Ashley to block, to stop them, and then use, Angel, Angel, not Ashley, Angel to block the opponent and get that final point and end the game, or at least not lose, and I think that's interesting. Yeah, I think it's interesting, but you can't buff her again, which is fine because I think she'd be ridiculous if there was a way to give her actually good stats. Yeah,
that
ridiculous. All right, Morningstar.
Morningstar. Good. Annie's counterpart. Morningstar represents the overly religious parent trying to push the ideology onto their offspring, which is quite fitting here. She keeps her same attitude in the comic, but something else happens. We'll see. So Morningstar, she's a 3 stamina, 1 movement, 3 range. Quite odd stats if you ask me. And her ability, I repent, be reborn as a fallen angel. Reset all stats but reduce them by 1 cannot be listened. I think this ability is a Merdic, très Merdic. Not very good.
Yeah, the stamina is fine. The movement is terrible, and the range is standard. So overall stats are lackluster. The ability is, and also like, how does being reborn work? Does she go back to the start of the board, or does she just come back where she was?
Comes back where she was.
Okay, that's not terrible, but this is almost useless from my perspective. I don't know when you would use this. It doesn't really make any sense. Any course of the game, like, when would you use this? Like, if you get debuffed by a permanently debuffed by a misfit, I think being reborn, it just gives you the exact same effect. Unless the debuff is more. So it doesn't really make much sense.
At the time I thought it was like, if she has, let's say, about to die or something, you use this and she comes back with slightly more stats. Which isn't very good to begin with.
But the stats are already bad, so it makes very little difference.
I feel if she was maybe a 4-1-4.
Yeah, I think she'd be better. Or maybe, a 4-1-4 is a lot better. Or even a 4-1-5 maybe, I think, would be a lot more useful. It's just kind of useless. I don't know why no one would use this, ever, for any reason. It just doesn't seem relevant.
Yeah, I don't know either.
So you're just using this like very, very mid unit with okay stats, I guess, and a useless ability. So it's just not good. It's just not good at all. Definitely not as interesting as Annie. Very very unnecessary effect. It's just not relevant. But that's just how Mismamon is. It's pretty dumb and convoluted, like everything I make.
Hard for fun.
Yeah. And we've got, I think this is the last page? White Land and Frankenstein's Wife, or you will know soon to be as Francesca.
You will know soon. I guess I go with Lane first. So White Lane, kind of what Psycho Meatfish said before. The neglected child, but in this case, without spoiling anything, he's just neglected child, I suppose. Kind of like Jack Frost from that one Dreamworks movie, Rise of the Guardians. At
Yeah,
least
that one.
the first couple minutes.
Yeah, Rise of the Guardians.
But a little more complicated.
Yeah. She can't be seen by others, I think, or something like that,
Yeah,
right?
something like that.
She's basically just doesn't exist to the eyes of other individuals.
He's a poltergeist.
Practically a nobody in like the literal sense.
Yeah, the little thing. Ja, zoiets samen na to movement interestingly zero range zero.
Yeah, that's weird.
Ability white noise lets you pass two characters and cross gaps, which I guess I should mention now. In some of the boards there are gaps
Yeah.
which you cannot cross.
Yeah.
But she can in that case.
Yeah. In that case, that would be very interesting, I think.
Yeah, she could get the shortcut to the exit.
Yeah, I think this is can she pass through masqueraders as well?
She can. Oui.
This is interesting. If there was a way to get her to move more than once in a specific round, you could pull a very strong combo where she just runs past everyone and gets to the exit.
Oui.
Maybe I'm pretty sure there was a card that you could draw that lets the character move again. I'm pretty sure. So if you get that, you're practically getting her out of the game.
Oui.
If you get lucky enough. And especially if you buff her movement somehow. Well, her movement isn't very much though.
Yes,
That is the caveat. It's actually below average, so... But this is an interesting effect. I think this is interesting. But she can't fight as well, so... I think overall she's a bit of a niche pick because the stats are lackluster. She can't fight. She literally can't. Like, she can only be attacked. She can't attack other people because she doesn't have range. I think overall she's not good, but interesting at least with the effect.
Oui, I think so too.
I don't think it does too much though because the stats just don't work, and I feel like Mismamon as a whole is too flawed to really see the full potential of some of these.
That is true.
Because if we added a hexagonal system, this effect wouldn't even work because there aren't any gaps at that point. It's just
Oui.
a board of hexagons with neighboring tiles.
I wonder how that would work.
Yeah, she'd be different. Maybe she could just pass through characters, or maybe something else specific.
Something.
Yeah, something else ghastly. I don't know. Anyways, next is Frankenstein's wife.
Or Francisca. I guess, should I comment about the relationship?
Whatever you want, man.
I guess I won't. If you see the...
You don't need to.
That's on you. Francesca, for stamina, un momento de range. Not terrible, but not too great either.
I'd say they're quite bad.
Yeah, little stamina.
Mostly the movement. The movement is the problem.
He's just like Frank in Aputa, but with one extra range.
Yeah. But I do think movement is a lot less of a problem for masqueraders since they're a lot less pressure to move since they're just walking obstacles for misfits. So as long as they get there eventually, it's not that big of a deal.
And ability is you. I see. Perform a DIY surgery on willing or unwilling allies. If they are 2 tiles away, once per game.
So once per game for each ally, just once per game in general?
Once per game, one ally.
Okay.
She redistributes the stats, which basically means you can choose where to put the stats. For example, Domanticus BST is a 4...
I think he's a 4-2-2.
4-2-2?
He's a 4-2-2.
So he has a...
Oh, he's a 4. Wait, let me check. I can just check.
I think he's a 4-2-2.
He's a 4. He's a 2-4-2. He's a 2-4-2.
2-4-2. Yeah, that's what I meant, the 2-4-2.
So the total is 8.
8. He has 8 stats, so basically you could distribute them however you want. Give him a 7 stamina, 1 movement and 0 range, or 3 range, 3 stamina, etc. Things like that. It's quite unique.
And they lose their ability.
And they lose their ability.
Yeah.
Which is,
Sounds like a double-edged sword to me.
I feel this would be much better on characters that are just statistics.
Yeah, I think this ability is, in practice, not bad, but I feel like with the current roster, there's not any characters that benefit from this.
Yeah, not too
if you use this on Dogmatic, I think he'd just be worse. He'd just come out being worse than he used to be.
His ability.
Yeah, his ability is his main feature, so I don't think you want to get rid of it. Otherwise, I find this to be interesting. And she can't do this on herself, right?
She cannot. No, she cannot.
Okay. It's interesting. I think this would be good with the right characters, but there aren't any characters right now that's good with this.
Oui.
And she may be slow, but she still has range, and she has pretty good stamina, so she can still fight mid-game and maybe be useful late-game when she gets in.
She in a fight at least.
Yeah. I think it's too hard to gauge because of the lack of units. I don't think any of my units would benefit from this. Their base stat total is too low.
That is true.
Yeah, it's just too low. This does sound interesting with characters who can buff themselves, but all of my characters that buff themselves are misfits, not masqueraders.
Oh, the misfits have the buffing.
Yeah, not the masqueraders, because masqueraders don't really need to buff themselves. They usually have superior stats than misfits, which is kind of just a trend.
Ah, it's a shame.
It's not bad conceptually, but there just isn't anything that can synergize with this effectively.
That is true.
Yeah. And, okay, I thought that was the last page, but we have like one or maybe one
I
more.
think this might be so.
Right. Jack Frost and Snow White.
Oui.
Dear God, that voice crack. Yeah.
It's not very modern.
So Jack Frost.
Jack Frost, quite obviously, origine of this song. The fable of Jack Frost fairy. It's not very Jack Frost. Not quite related to the one for the movie which I just mentioned.
Yeah, not the same.
Just a 4 kilo. So Jack Frost, 2 stamina, 2 movement, 4 range, and his ability Moonchild. Jack Frost frees his opponents after struggle. In my head, he was basically throwing a snowball at them.
Yeah.
If Jack Frost is captured before any other misfit, the hunter will face the Moon's Wrath. The target is frozen for 3 turns.
That is the Moon's Wrath.
Yeah, we captured Jack Frost. I thought he was quite interesting.
Yeah, he sounds interesting, I think.
He's the only character with a freeze mechanic.
Yeah. And they just can't move, right? They can't move. They can't do it. Can they still initiate combat, or can they just not do anything technically?
They cannot move. They can still use their range to attack.
But they cannot move. Okay. So they're not like literally frozen like Han Solo cryostasis frozen. They're just like they can't move their limbs or something. Yeah. They're kind of like Snow White.
Oui.
Okay.
I think the snowboard aspect of it is okay. Again, it might be much better if you could buff his stamina. Because likely if you do that, he will just die.
Yeah. So if they die, it doesn't work. The effect it doesn't.
It still goes off.
Oh, it goes off still. Okay. But you won't be able to take full advantage of it. You'll only get to it once if he gets captured. Although Moon's Wrath is still there.
Yeah, that is the real thing.
Yeah.
Basically, completely shuts down any masquerader that captures it.
Yeah. So if you are capable of capitalizing off of this again, I think he'd be better if he could get his stats augmented by an ally. But nobody does that right now.
No equivalent.
Yeah, no equivalent right now. No equivalent of Francisca or any ally buffers right now. I still think this is interesting. I think if you manage to win somehow, if you're skilled enough at rock, paper, scissors, you can freeze them, and that is very useful. Especially if they're a low-range character like Sheldon. You can just kind of beat the living crap out of them.
Just stay there.
Or ignore them if you want. I think this is very useful in all manners of play. Early game, mid game, and late game, but I think this is very, very good late game if he's still alive, because then he can freeze them and just allow the other characters to escape.
Oui. And like a better Annie.
Yeah, he sounds like a better Annie. Yeah. Angel, the better Angel. Sorry, not the other Annie. The better. He sounds better than Angel.
At least in a certain situation.
Yeah.
Less reliable, but in that situation, he's
much
better.
God, the amount of name overlaps in this is ridiculous.
Snow White, which is I thought would be hypothetically his sister. The story behind her is a bit different. It's kind of like the forgotten child in the family. Jack Frost is the popular kid, and Snow White is the forgotten child. So that kind of similar to White Lane, but in a different aspect. She does not give much attention, so she is frozen. Snow White's stamina is 4, her movement is 0, and her range is also 4. And her passive Cold Mind, Snow White must be stimulated every 2 turns, which basically means the misfit must be around her, or no, or
I thought they had to waste a turn.
They had to use a turn to stimulate her. And then every 2 turns, every turn she must be stimulated. She will not act. After stimulation, she gains 1 movement, but it cannot be more than 1.
I see. Okay, that's interesting.
Not quite good.
Yeah, the movement is nothing though. It's so bad. Interesting mechanic, I think. Since you have a 2-turn radius to still get her to move, you could maybe make something work. A lot of these other units just feel like walls for masqueraders. They don't really very interesting late game options and maybe useful. I think she could be useful mid game as well, just because of how good her stats are to get an effect going. But the movement is terrible outside of that, and you could also use her in a similar method to Jack Frost or Annie to defend more valuable misfits during late game when you're trying to escape.
She even gets that far.
Oh, the problem is that she can still get captured. Her stats aren't crazy, so that could end badly for you if she doesn't beat the opponent. I think overall she's a bit of a riskier choice in terms of strong misfit units. I believe that Jack Frost and Annie and maybe even Ashley are better defenders, and I think she gets somewhat outclassed by Shelly Shocked in terms of a combat unit. I think Shelly Shocked is just infinitely better than her. I think she would be a niche pick. I feel like she's bad and outclassed by a lot of units when it comes to her potential roles, but maybe she'd still get usage. I don't know. She's not abysmal, but she's not very good either. Very, very outclassed is what I would say.
Is that all?
Is that all? There is more!
There's more.
I think this is the last one.
This must be the last one.
So we got Romeo and King of Fools.
The real star is Romeo.
Let's just talk about Romeo, the cool one.
That's again, if you read the comic, you should know who she is, huh? Romeo. She is a daredevil. That's about it. This one is just me having fun. Nothing really here. Romeo has a 5 stamina, 2 movement, and 2 range. Very good stats.
Yeah, pretty good.
And her ability, Daredevil, she cannot escape if Romeo defeats a masquerader. She will become cocky until she loses, which basically means until she dies.
Cocky. Ability stat changes and special effects are ignored, and +1 stamina.
So she is immune to her stats being changed, and special effects. She also gains 1 stamina.
Interesting. Okay, this I feel like this is one of the better. Okay, this is just weird. The amount of units that you've made that are just literal stat sticks that just exist to fight masqueraders that don't actually, they do not want to escape. Like a lot of these units just don't want to escape. They want to defend allies that do want to escape. This is interesting. So this is another one of those can't escape units. The stats are very strong. I need to point that out. She has better stats than Dogmatic base. So, and Cocky is not affected by Dogmatic. So she's kind of like the misfit version of Dogmatic, sort of. Stat-wise, they're very similar. Although Dogmatic, I think, has a little bit more. No, their stats are actually almost the same.
She just has more stamina.
She just has 1 more stamina than Dogmatic. The Daredevil thing is interesting. I like it. The Cocky effect is very, very useful when keeping a chain of distraction and just being a general pain in the ass for the other player. So I think she's, again, good. I don't think she's good early game because of the movement. I mean, if you want her to get rid of monsters, it's just going to take a while. But mid-game and end-game, and especially mid-game, I think she's both good in mid-game and end-game, but she shines in mid-game because I feel like, again, if we had buffers or whatever, if you could chain... Oh, she's immune to... stat changes, so never mind, but still good. If you could chain her winning... Not saying that Cocky... Does Cocky stack?
It does stack.
It does stack. If you can chain her winning, she can become a very problematic unit, especially if she starts beating units that have low stats. So she just gets a plus over a minus, especially if you're very skilled at psychologically manipulating people. You could beat them in rock, paper, scissors, and get a very small minimal stamina loss with Romeo, and then get an increase or just completely shrug off the damage you took in the combat, if you're good enough. And that is very strong. So I think she has somewhat of a high potential, but that high potential is also kind of hidden away by a very high skill ceiling.
Me.
Yeah.
We have these hands.
Yeah, she does sound like one of the best units if you're very good at rock, paper, scissors, I think. But outside of that, for like casual players or people who just aren't as good at manipulating people.
So what?
Yeah. She's still decent. I think that she's likely to defeat a Masquerader and get cocky, and that helps her continue to block and continue to be an obstacle for the opponent. And I think that's very useful mid-game. If their Masqueraders are in your way or stopping your plans, you can get her to push them away, push them back, and continue with what you're doing. And I think late game, if you need to defend, like, she can defend multiple Misfits, honestly, with the cocky, because she can, with most of these other blockers, I feel like they get to do their thing once and then they're out of the game, or they're just not as useful for that. But because of cocky, and because of how much health she has, she'll probably win and probably have a decent amount left. Like, even if she just survives with one, she can just force initiate with another one and distract them, get in their way, and then the other guys can get away.
Oui.
So it's interesting to me. And, yeah, this is quite good. With or without the high skill, I think this is a very strong unit.
I feel if you are pretty good at you could maybe get into 3 fights consecutively without her being dead.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of potential with her if you're skilled, and that's really good. That's really interesting, because I don't think a lot of my characters are like that. So I like that this one is a bit more of a skill-based unit, although it still is viable if you're not as skilled.
Oui.
Yeah, I like Romeo. One of the better ones here, which is good. And I do like the variety we have with your characters, and the roles that they take. Because a lot of my Misfits are faster, and a lot of them buff themselves, but a lot of yours are just fighters, and really good mid-game, and really good late game, and I think that's interesting.
Oui, I do like my stats.
The variety here is good. Good roster. Okay, the last one, which I don't think you like this one very much, is King of Fools.
He's alright, not relevant or anything. I mostly just wanted something to put next to Romeo, if I'm being honest. King of Fools, he has a 7 stamina, 7 movement, and 7 range. I know, crazy, right? His ability, or nothing.
Oh my god, it's the god number!
Where does that come from, huh?
7.
Is 7 the god number? I just see what's the number look.
Also the god number.
I thought it was 13?
No, it was 7.
9?
Thought it was 7.
I thought it was 13 or 9. Well, I didn't Google this anyway. 7 is my favorite number, after all.
It is?
Yeah. Or nothing. Every turn, he rolls a die, takes a chance. If he rolls a 1, he withdraws. Oh. If he rolls a 2, all his stats become 2, 3, or 4, or 5, or 6. You get the idea. If he rolls a 6, however, all stats are
They
6.
stay.
No, all stats are 6,
Oh.
but he withdraws at the end of his turn.
Well, that's bad. That's not good.
So the main goal is really 3 to 5.
Yeah. And the roll starts at the start of his turn.
Oui,
So he gets those new stats at that turn.
Oui.
This is interesting to me. The movement and the range, because the potential to just run at people with these combos is very high. Even if you get like a 4, you have 4 movement and 4 range, which is already very high. If you manage to get a 5 or a 6,
you can basically just
yeah,
go
you can just run at them.
No.
They're not getting away that turn. Unless, so like, on the other side of the map, there's like a very high chance you're just going to run at them and start fighting them with those boosted stats and probably win. And if you get lucky and you get 6, that Misfit is dead. He's not living. He is going to die. He's captured. And you do get to start with the 7s at the beginning, but I think this is very irrelevant because it's early game. So he won't be close to Misfits anyway. The most you can do is rush down, maybe get him as close to the Misfits as possible.
If you try that and you roll like a 2 next turn,
Yeah.
you might be putting yourself in a bad position.
Yeah, and then he just gets killed.
Oui.
So it's very luck dependent, but I do think the consistent strategy players would maybe adopt with this guy is to use him as a bit of a run and just chase down Misfits early game and hope that you get a good roll to like interrupt their plans.
Oui.
And if he does get withdrawn, he'll just come back with full stats again, and you just run at them again like a crazy murderer, and I guess that's what his strategy is.
Also, if it's late game and he does get withdrawn, it's basically rapture him.
Yeah, it's basically he's done. Yeah.
No matter how much speed he has, he won't be able to reach them.
Yeah, he won't be able to. Maybe with full stats, but he only gets full stats for one turn, so it doesn't really matter. I think he's hard to define, I think, quality-wise.
Because it's all luck.
It's all luck, but I think for the most part, okay, this is very hard because there's actually a fair amount of negative rolls and a fair amount of positive. If you roll 1 or 2, you are positively fucked, especially 1. Like you're just wasting a slot when that happens. You're wasting firepower on a guy that just withdrew himself. If you get 2, he's basically useless as well. 3 is very okay. It's like the average number, very mid. If you get 4 to 6, you're in very good position. So I think he's very luck dependent. I feel like people would only use him if they really want to.
Oui.
I think his design is okay, so I don't think that would happen.
I don't like it at all.
I don't think he would get used very much, but...
Putain.
Yeah.
Putain, toi, I do not like this guy at all.
Pretty, interesting, sort of, but I don't have a lot to say about it, just because of how difficult it is to quantify, I think, value-wise. It's just kind of this weird luck thing. I guess that might be fun for some people, but I wouldn't use this.
It is fun. I am the type to like fun.
Is that it?
Oui, that is it.
That is it. Okay, that is every Misfit and Masquerader in Mismamon 2. Every mechanic. Yeah, on his side. On Mechode's side. And we also already talked about my unit. So we got all of them. We got every unit ever made for this iteration. Their stats, their mechanics, a little bit of comments about game design and all that fun stuff.
Moi est better, no?
Yours are better. I would say yours are better.
Oui? Oh, really? Oh,
well,
merci.
A lot of them. I guess there's give and take. I do like their designs a lot. I think there's a lot more.
You too kind.
They are different. And they add a lot to it. I didn't look at some of these other ones because they're...
Yeah, not that relevant.
We're not going to talk about those other ones.
They don't deserve to be relevant anyway.
Yeah, they don't deserve to be relevant. But a lot of stats, a lot of walls, a lot of fighters, which is interesting compared to my units, which are a little bit all over the place. We got a lot of buffers. We got IMR, we got Rasputin, we got Annie, we got some trappers, we got... They're just a lot more spread out on my side. Do a lot of different things. I like the direction yours is going in, though. I think they can lead into a specific play style, which is interesting to me.
Merci,
I like it. I like what they add to it. But I think that's all for Mismamon 2. So that was Mismamon 2. 1 year ago, we made this very terrible board game with these very terrible game mechanics.
But I loved it, though.
Yeah, we loved it.
It was fun.
It was Mismamon 2.
Good break from monotony of daily
life. Monotony of existence.
It was really fun.
I guess we get to kind of wrap up a little bit and talk about the comic, Mismamon 3. So,
very briefly.
Yeah, what are your words for this?
Switch sides for me.
Switch sides, huh?
Slides. There's only 2?
There's only 2.
I thought there was more.
You only put in 2 slides.
Never mind. But I am the guy.
Is this enough?
That should be enough.
Alright, take it away.
Just a brief conversation.
Brief conversation about Mismamon 3. Read the fucking comic, please. It's very good.
If you want to, honestly. So, the Mismamon comic. So, after the whole Mismamon ball game thing, after that on a bit, I was contemplating my artistic direction for myself. And I came to the conclusion that I would want to make a story for practice for my bigger one, which we will get to in a couple of years probably. And I was having trouble deciding which one I wanted to go with. And then I remembered Mismamon, how much I liked it, and I thought to myself, maybe I can do something with this. And so I asked my good friend Psycho Meatfish if I could make a comic out of these little misfits and masqueraders, and he said, sure, mon ami, go ahead. And this is where we are now. So a brief brief synopsis of the comic. It's about Annie, the angel Israeli.
The angel.
Angel, who is now called Annie because she needed a name, and I thought Annie had a nice ring to it. Nor relate to the other one, of course. Stories about her and the journey to find her father, who is apparently somewhere on Earth. She is an angel as she used to be up in the clouds with her mother, Morning Star. After an incident with her mother, she was tired of her shit and decided to take her own journey onto Earth to find her father and hopefully uncover some mysteries along the way. Maybe religion? Probably not, but maybe. While she's on Earth, she may meet a few misfits, some friends, actually all of them friends in time, but all in the hopes of finding her father, her papa. And of course, the masqueraders are here too. With Kane, like I said before. Dogmatic, comes on with that.
Maybe some others too.
Some others. The main big band of the story is Kane, which has a lot more relevance to Annie than you may think, but I will keep that a secret for now. For now, that is about it without getting into too much spoiler territory.
There's currently 2 issues out.
I'm on hiatus currently, working on the writing and
for the third one.
For the third one.
So it's coming, but
it must be
a bit longer.
As good as I can make it without being perfect.
Yeah. If you like, so far liked this conversation, you should definitely check out Mismamon, the comic. Give it a read. We got 2 issues out right now. I forgot the names.
The Great Non-Believer.
Yeah, the Great Non-Believer and the Angelic Invader Girl. Go give them a read.
Just be ready to hear an angel say swear words.
Yeah, be ready for fuck and piss and shit.
Ready for putain mud, which is fucking shit.
Yeah, get ready for nasty words, people.
And the real thing to be ready for is lots of bad stuff.
Yeah, lots of bad stuff. Lots of
cutting, burning.
Yeah, cutting, burning, belts. Maybe some lugers here and there, maybe.
In due time.
In due time. But yeah. Thank you for listening, and if you enjoyed it, maybe tune in the next one in like the next month or so, maybe.
Next month.
Sorry about the partially cringeworthy references in here.
I showed you I found a bit more on me.
Yeah. But yeah. Thanks again. We will see you next time.
Wait.
What is it?
I would just like to explain my odd speaking pattern. I am not actually Francais. I am just learning Francais. So that is why I'm speaking with such a, what should I say, Francais accent. Maybe sometime when I am better with it, I will speak in langue française. But for now, I will occasionally interject some French words I know with this accent. Well, that's all for now, mon ami.
Yeah.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.